they don't go to college, they might test that. Like, like, do you still love me because I chose to do something different? Do you still love me that I'm not a straight A student? And those are really hard pills for parents to accept, because we have this vision in our mind of what we want our kids to be and who we want them to become. And it's so much out of a place of love for us. We love them so much. We want them to have this great life. But the problem with that is
Lynn Speaks Podcast is a place where you can grow beyond your limitations and make an impact on the world. I am Lynn. I will teach you how to take the restraints off of you, begin to live free, and become unstoppable. Go to EricaLynnSpeaks.com.
I say Lynn Speaks. Lynn Speaks.
Welcome to Lynn Speaks Podcast. And I am your host, Lynn. Each week I always try to bring you guys informational things, empowering, inspirational topics and subjects that would just make you go, And when you think about how you can fix an area in your life with some of the information that we provide, then hopefully you're able to move forward and go beyond the limitations that are keeping you stuck. See, right now, as we're going through the pandemic, many of you parents are being stuck with trying to be the mom, the CEO, the coach, and now you are the teacher, the instructor, and your kids are probably driving you crazy. But you cannot let your children drive you crazy. You have to begin to figure out how you can relate to them, how you can communicate with them, and identify the areas in their life that is causing them problems so that you guys can have a better relationship. My next guest, she knows better than anybody how to connect with your child, how to understand what's going on with them so that you guys can have a great relationship, how you can help fix the areas in their life, which in turn will help be a lot peaceful than what it is. So join me, Kristina Campos from the Impactful Parent. Welcome to Lynn Speaks Podcast.
Thank you, Lynn. You're amazing.
Thank you. I try. So, in this blog, first of all, Kristina has provided the blog for us that you guys have read this week on Lynn Speaks blog on the website. And it was filled with so much great information. Kristina, I want to know, how did you even come up with the blog?
Sure. Well, we're always trying to figure out, why is my child acting that way? Like, that's the essence, is you got to figure out why that is. Behaviors always represent something else happening in your child's world or feeling that they're feeling. And so the whole idea of the blog came from, is your child like acting out right now? Maybe they feel anxious, or maybe they're starting to pull away from your relationship a little bit. And sure, some of that might just be a little bit too togetherness right now during quarantine, but a lot of times it ends up being a lack of them feeling secure in some of their primary needs being met. And many parents don't even realize what those needs are.
Yeah. So in the blog, we talked about what every child needs, number one. And you talked about security. So if a person think about when you're an adult and you're in a relationship, if you don't feel secure, then you don't feel like your relationship is going anywhere, or how can you grow your adult relationship? So just imagine how kids feel. How do you help a child feel secure?
Exactly. And that is the need number one, security. And if your child doesn't feel that, they go into a fight or flight mode. Those are two ways that kids, or people actually, just anybody, will react to not feeling secure. You either hide and get scared because you're not trying to avoid them, or you go into, I'm going to fight this out and I'm going to win. And so those are the behaviors that you might be seeing. And how you're going to combat that is you really need to reinforce their security. And there's two different types of security that you want to address. The first one is the obvious security of physical space, that they don't feel like they're going to die when they walk out the door. They're not going to get hurt. Someone's not going to hurt them physically. And the second one is more of an emotional security, knowing that you're going to love your child through thick and thin. And in order to do that, you got to keep hammering over and over again that you'll love them no matter what. And I would say the mistake that a lot of parents make is we know so much in ourselves, like deep down, we think, of course I love my kid. How do they not know that? And then we come out with criticisms and saying, well, why did you do that? Instead of saying, wait a second, not why did they do that? They're going to come back with, I don't know. Instead, you have to ask things like, well, how did that make you feel at that time? Could you have done something differently? What would you have changed? And you start getting down to the more of the root of things. Because if you start asking, well, why did you do that? That just feels very unloving, like it has judgment behind it. And that's where the security comes in. Your child needs to know that you love them no matter what. And we got to be really careful with our words here, that it doesn't come off as judgy, or there's boundaries around the love that you have for them. And they will test that, especially teenagers, because they're asserting themselves and they're trying to figure out who they are.
Wow, that's interesting. And even though I have young adult children, that still makes sense to use those methods on your youth period, no matter what age, because I did find myself at one point, you didn't do this right. You can't do it. I need you to do this. And then, so now when he does stuff wrong, I just reiterate with love. You're great. You're smart. You can do this. I'll be like, wow, like today, before he left for work, I have a 19-year-old. And before he left for work, I was like, you are awesome. I was like, you don't want to be late for work because I want you to get your own apartment. Yes. And he's like, Mom, it's crazy. But I'm doing it in the way that he and I communicate in the best loving way possible. But at the same time, I'm reiterating the truth. Like, yeah, you got to go, but let me help yourself so you can go, But that's the same
right.
with our young people. You got to figure out what works. You got to be able, you got to make them feel secure. That is so important. Security is very, very important. So that brings us to what every child needs, number 2, which is acceptance. How do you make a child feel as if they are accepted in your life, in your world, and in everything that you do, so that they can have the confidence that they need?
And the security and the acceptance, I mean, they're kind of going hand in hand, right? If you accept them, then they feel secure. So that one's kind of like a circle that kind of goes around. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of parents make with the acceptance piece is that we put these labels on our kids, or that when we try to live vicariously through them sometimes, and we don't let them be who they are and their real authentic selves. For example, you might say, no, I want my kid to go to college. Okay, that's a really practical thing for a parent to want. But your child, if they don't go to college, they might test that. Like, do you still love me because I chose to do something different? Do you still love me that I'm not a straight A student? And those are really hard pills for parents to accept, because we have this vision in our mind of what we want our kids to be and who we want them to become. And it's so much out of a place of love. For us, we love them so much. We want them to have this great life. But the problem with that, you may have given a life, but it is not your life to live. Mm-hmm. And that is, it's the essence. It's not your life to live. Your job as the parent is actually just to shelter, to feed, to guide, to help them, to coach them if you can. And with that, you let them make their own choices and decisions, and you're there to help them when they fall. And so many parents overstep that boundary and go into you got to be this and you got to be that and you got to go do this. And of course, hindsight's 2020. We know as adults that you should study, you should go to school. Like we know that those will lead you to a better life in our own eyes. But again, that's an opinion of us from our own experiences that we are like pretty much, it's like a sticker we put on our kids and saying, this is what you need to do. I know better, so do it. When really they have to find out for themselves. And you know this when you have a child who won't understand it unless they fail and they got to learn it on their own. We have that kid. If you're listening right now, if you got that kid. You also have other kids who will listen to what you say and they'll accept what you say. And they're like, okay, yeah, maybe you do know better and I'll go with that path. So you give your suggestions. It's super important to give that guidance, but we can't. The acceptance piece is if they choose not to take your guidance, do you still accept them for who they are? A lot of parents with LGBTQ identifying children have difficulty with this too. Again, you have an expectation that your son or daughter is going to grow up and get married, and you have a vision of that wedding and the children and the grandchildren that you're about to have. And sometimes, again, it's another very difficult pill to swallow when they choose a different path than what you had planned for them. But that's our own thing. That's us as parents. We need to get over that because it's their life to live.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful. No, that's pretty powerful because as you're speaking, I'm sitting here going through my mind of like all these experiences that I've had with my own children. And just like someone else that's listening to the podcast, they're probably going through their own thoughts like, wow, was I that type of parent? Did I allow my children to live their own life? And as you were saying that statement about the LGBTQ, I was thinking about my daughter when she was a senior in high school, and she was just exceptional, straight A student, honor roll, honors classes, all that. I was like, yes, I can't wait to graduation. Well, her senior year, she had got a 1-year scholarship for college out of the country in Taiwan. So she skipped her senior year and went straight to college in another country. And I just remember saying, I want to see you walk across the stage. I want to scream. Like I want to go to the prom, help you get dressed for the prom, and send you out. Like I just had all these expectations of senior year. And when she left me, like, first of all, I had to get those thoughts together in my head and saying, well, it's not my life to live. It's her life to live. But it was not easy at first. But if parents keep that thought in mind, what you said is you may have given the life, but it's not your life to live. So when you think about that, then you're able to make better decisions based upon the needs of your child. And so although I didn't get to go to her graduation, she still flew home at the end of that year and went to my niece's prom because she was graduating from high school too. So I still got an opportunity to get her all dressed up, but she bought her dress and stuff in Taiwan, and the ladies over there, they fit her and everything. So I missed out on all that part, but I did it through virtual. Like we do everything virtual now. So I just kind of got to jump on the virtual shopping from her being out of the country. So that is pretty powerful though. I just really want people to really think about that. You may have given the life, but it is not your life to live. And if you understand that it is not your life to live, your job is to be there to support your young people in living their life and guiding them and being there to give them, feedback when they ask, because it's not you to go, I want you to go right. I want you to go right. And they want to go left. You can drop nuggets and make them think about the decision that they're making or what's going to happen, or ask them questions like, have you thought that out, thought it out, and make them begin using their own brain opposed to using your brain for them. So does that make sense? Like, did I?
And these are all, it sounds so simple, but I don't want to give you, this is hard. This is hard stuff as a parent. These are super, expectations will kill your relationship with your older child. Anywhere from teenagers and on, it's going to kill your relationship to have any kind of expectation. But it's not easy to let go of those because, again, if they're just coming from a place of love.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the most important thing, as you said, don't just expect your children to know that you love them because you're mom or your dad. So don't be like, I'm your mom, you know I love you. I'm dad, you know I love you. Like, you really have to make them feel and know that you love them. And even when you chastise them, you're saying, I'm doing this from a place of love. You know, your own punishment, you was wrong, but I love you. But then, like, and you explain to them what they did wrong. And that kind of helps them and like, it's like you're backing it up in a supportive type of way.
And they will test you. So you got to be ready for that. When they do something wrong and they make those bad choices, and they will, it's how you react that shows them the love, that you're not just talk service and you're just saying, I love you. It is the actual act of how you react to those bad moments that really shows your love to them. I mean, are you lecturing and are you mad, or are you sitting next to them saying, wow, that was, I'm here for you though. Like you got to be there, and holding them in that moment and saying, what can I do to support you? Because you're obviously in a really bad place because of that choice. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that I don't love you any less.
Yeah.
Those are the moments. That's how you show the acceptance. That's how you show the security.
Wow. That's pretty powerful though, because we talk about the teenagers, like it's kids of all ages that experience this, but it's the teenagers that really, really need love and support. But at the same time, you need to show them that you're not like, that they can't push you over just because they did this, like they can get away with it. You're not getting away with it. I see what you did. And if you had gone a different path, then you would have had a different result. However, this is the path you chose. So now you got to be, you got to stand in it. You got to own the decision that you make. I love you, but you got to stand in your own mess. And that teaches the kids a lesson. Like, oh man, I always like to say, like the younger kids, when you go, don't touch the stove. It's hot. It's hot. Don't touch it. Mama said, don't touch it. It's hot. Then they touch the stove and they, oh, it's hot. Well, they never touch the stove anymore. So we always say, like, you have to let them have their own experiences, because if you try to like protect or prevent them from having those experiences, they become sheltered. And when they get out of your house, now they're trying to have all these experiences and bumping their heads and people looking at them like, you're not a smart adult. You know what I mean? So you kind of got to guide them while they're younger. So when they become adults, they have experiences and they're not like just airheads. I hate to say it like that.
Very well said, Erica Lynn. Very well said. And there's a name for those parents. You can call them hover parents, or the new term is a lawnmower parent, because they mow down all the obstacles before the child can get to it. So, I mean, it's become a phenomenon that there's even a term.
Oh, wow.
And we got to stop doing that.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting. So we talked about
security. And then acceptance.
And so what every child needs, number 3, is power. Making them powerful adults. Powerful young people grow up to be powerful adults. And we don't mean powerful to where you become an adult and you stepping on the little people or you crushing them or making them feel worthless. Powerful young people becomes powerful adults, which makes them feel that they can accomplish and do everything that they set their mind to. So can you elaborate a lot more, Kristina, about what it means to be a powerful young person?
And power comes from, they need to know that they matter in the world. They need to know that if I do something, there is a consequence. There is a reaction to it. Because when you are powerless, those kids that feel powerless in their own world, those are the depressed. Those are the highly anxious. Those are the very suicidal children because they feel powerless in their environment. So you need to give them power and at least show them and coach them that they do have power in their world, whether it's allowing them to make their choices and face those consequences. That actually shows them power. Okay, if I did this, then this actually happens. I affected my own environment. But if they do something and nothing happens, well then, what's the even point of me? And that's a very deep-seated, rooted feeling that they need to obtain. So they have to know that they matter. They absolutely have influence in who they are, what they can do, how they can change the world, that there's consequences or reactions, even good stuff too, that if they study really hard, there's a reaction to that maybe they'll pass. It's all these little things that really matter that as they're going through their teenagerhood, that they subconsciously take note of. And so that's super, super important. And you lift them up in that power. And hopefully you take all the positive things that they can do and you show them that, yes, if you volunteer in your community, then look at the new opportunities you have. If you study in school, look at the results of that. And sometimes you have to point it out to them, but you show them that they have power and that they matter. Wow. It's such a really internal thing. And again, these three really influential things, this goes for anybody. This isn't just children. This goes for the whole world. We all have to feel secure and accepted and feel like we matter in the world and that somebody would miss us if we were gone. If you feel like if you weren't here and nobody would care, again, that comes back to those kids that feel suicidal and things. So if you have a child who's struggling with this, like, it doesn't matter, who cares about that? Look at, do they have a sense of power? This might be the fundamental pillar that they're lacking. And once you know, then you can work on that, which is why I created a free PDF for your audience, what every child needs and questions to ask your child or yourself. It goes through these three different pillars and questions to ask yourself and your child. How do you feel about these? Because it'll give you a little bit more insight to, are all their needs being met? And if they're not, now as a parent, knowledge is power there. Once you know that that's how they feel, that's the need that needs to be lifted, then as an impactful parent, you can take that role on and help your child and lift them up. And that's, again, it just helps you in your relationship with them. It's so fundamental.
Wow. So these are the three fundamental needs to improve their behavior. 1, 2, and 3. So what can some of the things that we can do or parents can do that can help them go through these fundamentals and make it a little bit easier for them?
Sure. Well, again, you can go to the PDF and ask them questions and try to figure out which one they might be lacking. Provide stability for them so that they know that their world is pretty predictable and that they know that you're not, one of the things you could do is not overreact when they make those bad choices, which will happen. Because if you're screaming and yelling, again, that gives off the wrong message. You could you're not discounting what they did. You're just not throwing it back in their face. They already know they screwed up. They already know that you're going to be angry. So it's just a matter of supporting them in a way that's actually productive instead of, why did you do that? You're ruining everything. I mean, those are, there's the judgment again. There's the expectations that now I feel even worse because I know that I didn't live up to your expectations. Kids want to please you.
Yeah.
but they will also test your love. And so it's pass that test. I'm telling you, parents, right now, pass the test. This is what they're doing. So now that you know, pass the test. Take it with a grain of salt. Be there for them. You can do it. You can go to words of affirmation and reaffirm to the qualities that make them who they are. And it's qualities of who they are, not of what they do. That's huge. Qualities of who they are. Because what they do will shift, and they'll test those. Again, are you still going to love me if I'm not a straight A student? But qualities of who they are. I love that you work hard for the things that matter to you. That speaks to their tenacity. That speaks to their willpower. Qualities, you're looking for characteristics to lift them up and say, I see you. I see who you are. And I'm going to verbally tell you out loud, because they don't get it. We think that they get it. Because again, isn't my love obvious? I'm your parent. Mm-hmm. They don't get it. You actually have to walk the walk and talk the talk and tell them out loud.
So is that the same as, say you have a child that's into sports, for example, and you busting your butt to pay for all this expensive equipment, you know, all of the fees and things that's needed. And so you got to work a little bit of overtime so that you can provide the money for them. And you really don't have the time to go to the games because you work and making the money. But just because you spent the money to make sure that they're there, doesn't a child still feel not secure or one of these three fundamentals because you didn't show up? And so showing up to the games actually reinforces what you're saying?
It depends on the child. And you can look to their 5 love languages. You know, there's 5 love languages out there. So for some children, you showing up is going to be important. For others, you working hard to get them there is enough. But that's where we have to stop making assumptions about what your kids care about and ask them. Say, look, I wanted to be there. I'm going to have somebody record it for me and explain to them, because sometimes, I mean, kids are just naturally selfish. That's part of who they are. It's not a bad thing to them. I mean, it's just who they are. They think of themselves. It's developmentally appropriate. Their brain just haven't developed enough to kind of go outside of their own self. So you've got to explain it to them. As a parent, if you want to go there, I need to do this, this, and this, and this. And you just have to, again, the more you can talk it out and explain your actions to them and where you're coming from, you can't just assume that they know.
Yeah.
And then you can say, is that important to you? Do you really care that I'm there? Because if you care, then maybe we can figure out how to get a video there so I can watch it. Or do you understand that if I do show up, now there's going to be a consequence to that we're not going to have as much money at the house because I needed to work in order to get you even there. And yeah. I think a lot of disconnect comes from parents just assuming that their kids get it, and they don't.
Wow. You know, I think, first of all, I want to say kudos to you bringing awareness to all the moms and dads out here who are having trouble connecting with their children. And you're providing them not only the fundamentals, but you're providing them tools and techniques that they can utilize to help them connect and to help them better understand their children. And I said it before, and I'm going to say it again. A healthy, happy child makes a healthy, happy adult. Both of those two things go hand in hand. Often the times you see adults and they like, well, I had a terrible childhood. My mama fed me beans all the time, or my mother was never home because she had to work 2 jobs, or my daddy was not there. I had dad issues. And so if you could think about the issues as an adult that you had, or you having, and think about how your young people feel and what they're going through, then that should kind of help you build a better relationship with them. And if you don't know how, then that's why we're providing these materials for you so that you can understand how to. Because we think that it's common sense, right? We all think that, oh, you just tell the kid this or you do this, but it's not, because everybody is different. So what works on one child doesn't work on another. And I know you parents know this, because if you have more than one child, what worked on your oldest didn't work on your youngest. And so you got to get creative. You know, it's always that youngest that you got to really, really get creative, because the youngest got shoes that they got to follow, you know, and then you thinking that they're going to just be straight A students like the oldest, but then they're a little bratty and whiny. You know, it's just all different type of scenarios that we all experience having children. And so I encourage you guys to go to EricaLynnSpeaks.com /blog and read the blog, what every child needs to know, and or whatever child's needs. I apologize. So Kristina, you have so much great information that parents need to read or hear or watch the videos to help them connect with their children and help them build better relationships and better bonds. How would one connect with you so that they can find out more information about you, what you do, and how you can help them?
It's super easy. You just go to theimpactfulparent.com. You need the, and you can follow me on social media, which has the handle The Impactful Parent. So I'm everywhere: Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah. Wow. And do you have a website, or are you just on Facebook and Instagram?
No, that's it. That's https theimpactfulparent.com.
Okay, I got you. You know, that's fantastic. I thank you so much for coming on the podcast, because as I was listening to you, you began blessing me in my own life, you know, and I just want parents to know that even though you made mistakes in the past, or you made a mistake yesterday, that's okay. Because now we've given you tools to equip you to not make that mistake again, but instead build a better relationship with your young people. Do you have any last minute words or anything that you would give to the audience that would help them just have a better relationship, or help them to help themselves and to help their children?
I think, we're all just doing our best. And I think you need to give yourself some grace. If you find that you haven't been doing this, or you go to the free PDF and you start asking your kids about this, and you discover that one of their needs isn't being met, which, by the way, the PDF's at theimpactfulparent.com, what every child needs, then just give yourself grace. Don't be like, oh man, I'm a horrible parent. What am I doing? No, we're all doing our best. Your kids know that you're trying. You just verbalize, love them, give them a good squeeze tonight, tell them where you're coming from, be vulnerable. That's okay. They need to see it, that you're human too. The vulnerability goes a long, long way. And you got this. You got this, parents. You got it.
Yeah, and there was a question I forgot to ask you. I'm going to ask you, then I'm going to let you go. Seeing as how we're in the pandemic and you're stuck in the house with your kid, you're being the teacher and the mom and everything else. And when you're around somebody too long, the tensions kind of flare up. Do you have any advice for the parents and the children on how they could coexist and make this process a lot smoother?
I think routine is a super, super important. Routine creates that sense of security that they're looking for. That's part of this. And part of that routine should also be blocks of alone time, maybe even electronic time. That could be like an actual block in your day where they can go online and actually be social with friends. That's going to be important to establish, like, this is an hour to talk with your friends. And if you actually implement that as part of your routine, you're showing that you value their friendships outside of, the family. And it gives them a sense of relief when they get to go be on the phone instead of, being worried that you're going to nag on them because they've been talking to their friends too long. I mean, you can always set boundaries on those. Creating boundaries helps. But in this time, a lot of our normal rules and stuff, we kind of gotta throw it away a little bit and be flexible. And you're going to create stability. You're going to create this routine. You're going to find a list of things that you value and make sure that those are part of your routine, whether it's, hey, this is our hour of exercise as a family, and maybe you got to separate to do it, or do videos, or go for a walk, or whatever that looks like to you. But if that's a family value to you, you put all those things in the schedule, and your kids will see what's a value, what's really important that you are trying to implement, because it's about not what they do, but who you're trying to create. What are those characters you're trying to develop and nurture? And is it learning how to have friendships? Is it homework time? You're valuing education? Is it exercise, that you're putting that in the routine, that you're valuing health? Your actions reflect a lot about your values, and you just got to remember that when you're creating all this with your children in this quarantine right now. And even how you react to the quarantine itself. Are you terrified to leave the house because you're going to get sick, which may mean, think about the message that sends? Or are you on the whole other end of the spectrum? Are you going out and you're not wearing your mask, and what message does that send? Just think about all those actions and those role modeling that you're doing, because your kids are watching. So, but give them some alone time, make a structure. It just helps the day kind of run a little bit more smoothly, because it's not easy right now. And just know, again, give yourself grace. It's not easy. It's okay.
Okay. Oh, that's fantastic. So structure is important. They may hate you at first for the structure, but then it'll become part of their regular routine. And then you're showing them that you value their education, and then they will begin to value their education just as much, if not more, than you. And it just makes the process a lot easier, and you don't have to shake them like, get up and get out of bed and go do your work, and it becomes part of their norm. Kristina, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Like, I really, really appreciate you for providing all these helpful tips and tools. Like I said, you got me thinking about things I did in my own life, or things that I can implement in my person that's 19. So you're never too old that you can't guide and show them love and acceptance and some form of security, so that they can grow up to be happy adults and whole adults and move in their own apartments. No.
That's right.
Thank you guys for tuning in to Erica Lynn Speaks Podcast. To get more information, you can go to the impactfulparent.com. And if you guys want to know, like, we all have weaknesses. We all have areas in our life that we want to overcome. You guys can go to ericalynnspeaks.com and get your free download today. I give you tools and tips to help you overcome those weak areas in your life that then will help you go from stuck to unstuck. So now that you're excelling as a young person or an adult, happy people, happy life. That's our time. And I'm Erica Lynn. And this was Kristina Campos. And just remember, you guys, it only takes just one step beyond you. God bless you. And I'll see you guys next time.